In this video, you'll be learning what is N8N, if this is the right tool for you, should you learn it, what are the pros, cons of this tool, and how does everything work under the hood inside N8N. This is one of the first videos specifically talking about N8N in the AI Agent Origin series. And from this series, all the basics about N8N and how to use it professionally will also be available on YouTube, and all the production-ready templates, builds will be inside the community. But if you're here just to learn about N8N, everything that goes on YouTube from here should be more than enough. So let's head right into the video. So the first couple of questions about N8N is this tool for you and should you learn it? So let's talk about both of these questions in detail. So this tool is for fast prototyping, which means if you're trying to build something and you just need a prototype ready, so this is perfect for you. So you might have seen in the market now, most of these SaaS are just called AI wrappers, or they're just stringing together APIs. So N8N is the perfect use case to test your prototype. For example, if you're trying to build a SaaS which generates HeyGen-like videos, which means it's going to add your AI avatar and there's going to be a video in the background, and you want to do it on autopilot. So how do you prototype it? So the application is going to look something like this. There is an entry point, which means you submit your video, and the video will be of, for example, you just want to do the Instagram and TikTok dimension, which means it's going to be 9:16. So if this is the video that you want to make, you have the background, and this SaaS offers that whatever video you add and script you add, it adds an overlay of you or the AI avatar that you designed for it, and it's going to be speaking here about the video. So that's a perfectly valid SaaS idea. That's what's going on Instagram right now, that people just have a news and they just have news in the background and their AI is talking over it and they just make the videos. And this is a perfect example. So how would the prototype of such a SaaS look? Assuming you're using HeyGen, which is what everyone else is using for these AI avatars, because it has the most accurate video generation of all the comparable tools. So what's going to happen is you have this entry point, you send your video, and with the video, you also send the script. So now you have your script and you have your video. So now you send this to your SaaS, and what it does is, firstly, it uses some video API to have your video here. Then it adds the subtitles. Then using the HeyGen API, it's going to send your video and the script, and then it's going to generate your talking avatar, and it's going to send it back. Now you're going to place the talking avatar here, and you'll probably add the subtitles, and this is one video ready. And you can sell it as a service. So if you want to test something like this, rather than building the entire setup, because in the backend, what you'll have to do is you'll have to build the database, you'll have to build the schema and all those complex things. The best thing you can do is just come in N8N, add your trigger node, add an HTTP node, and then have some FFmpeg or some kind of library doing the entire generation, and you have your video ready. If that works, if it's viable, if the pricing is working, you can just go ahead and build your SaaS. So that is what N8N is perfect for. And let alone perfect, there is no better tool than that. And if you're trying to build anything, I think it's completely stupid to directly jump into your code editor and try to figure out APIs. And if you're trying to build anything like that, it's completely stupid to jump into the code editor and manually wrangle with the code, trying to wipe code. Then it makes some error. Now you're trying to fix it. If you're working with APIs and you're trying to build something, which is mostly an AI wrapper, N8N is the best tool in existence for that. So it is technically the best tool to start anything. This is the best for building MVPs, not even complete MVPs, because if you're building a SaaS, your MVP means the SaaS works. But I'm talking about the pre-SaaS, that you have your N8N workflow. It works, it verifies your idea that it can even be built, and then you go ahead and implement it in SaaS. Next thing is if you want to learn to wipe code and you don't feel comfortable directly jumping into APIs and all those things. So this is another reason why you should start learning N8N, because you will get higher level overview of what APIs are. You will learn different kind of APIs, different kind of HTTP methods, and that's going to give you a lot of exposure before you get into wipe coding. And the second question is, should you learn it? I would say absolutely. If you want to stay up to date with AI and test new tools, because most of the tools are just released via APIs. So either you can just go on their platform and use it. And if you actually want to use it, you will just need to use their API. Else you cannot integrate it with some other tool. Like you have ChatGPT and you have their chat, you have the platform. But if you want to use ChatGPT, the actual service, and integrate it into some other product, you need their API. And if you're a complete beginner, then just having an HTTP node and that making sure everything runs inside the system perfectly is so much better than just randomly writing API requests if you're a complete beginner. And there's one more thing. The recent trend that I see is having N8N workflow templates. And by these templates, I just mean that there are a few GitHub repositories in which there are like 5,000 templates. The other one has like 2,000 templates and all these things. Unless those templates have been tested in production or for some specific use case, they're kind of useless. The reason why I build most of my templates by myself is because no such templates exist for that exact requirement. So if you're learning this tool, you'll either be a person who wants to just use it and stay on top of what's going on in AI. The second might be you want to use this tool to actually go into businesses and build stuff. So in this case, the first one, you can just use anything. You can just dabble around, make anything, and be fine. But if you're going into businesses, either you have a professional SOP, and most of these templates that just are floating around, they're not really SOPs. Like they do not integrate into a process. So to take inspiration from them and see what's happening in some of them is cool. But if you just think that's going to be enough, that is not really going to help. And you can look this as a similar thing to vibe coding. And if you're just getting the templates from somewhere or letting AI build the automation for you, that's pretty much like vibe coding, except for N8N. And as you know that you can get to at least 80% or even 90% in some cases when you're vibe coding with your SaaS and any kind of software. But to get that last percent and make it proficient and to actually implement it into businesses, you need to handcraft it and adjust it to the situation. Else it's just going to fail. Now let's look at the pros and cons of N8N. So the first thing is N8N is open source, which means you can self-host it and use it as you want. Even though there are a few specific rules from N8N on how you can use it to make money, and you can check their exact rules in their terms and conditions and all those sections. But generally, for whatever you use, it should be perfectly fine. Secondly, that there are a lot of AI integrations pre-made for you. So you don't have to look at each tool's API before you're integrating it. For example, you don't need to go to Slack's entire API documentation and figure out everything. You just add your credentials and now you can do a lot of things directly from N8N. Now let's talk about the cons. N8N is going to be slower than manual code all the time. The first point is N8N is going to be slower than manual code. Even N8N is just running manual code underneath. So it has to be slower than manual code. There is nothing as fast as that. Sometimes, which is extremely rare, I just mean in 2% or 1% of scenarios, it might not have enough customizability for you. And for that, you can either use just HTTP request or you need to manually code or wipe code. The third situation where N8N fails is when you need low latency logic, which means things are happening so fast or requests are coming in too fast. In that case, N8N won't be ideal. And if there are too many requests, it might even fail. So before we explore the interface of N8N, let's look at how N8N is working under the hood. What exactly is going on? What is N8N? So N8N is a SaaS. So that means that you have the software which you see in which you just add your nodes, you can connect them to the other nodes, but underneath it's using Next.js and all the other things you can imagine of how you would build SaaS. And it's using a library called React Flow, which is used to connect these nodes. So if you see a canvas in which you have an option to connect nodes and you can zoom in and all these things like in N8N, that is because of the React Flow library. That's what it helps you. And underneath it just has all the APIs. And to show this to you, let's go ahead in Docker and see it. I'm going to open Docker and I'm going to open my N8N terminal. And if I go into files and if I see the home directory and inside there's a node directory in which there is .n8n. And now you can see all the information that is inside N8N. There's a binary data folder, there's this main database which stores everything, there's a crash journal, there's config, and this is where it is. Nodes package.json. So this is where everything is. And these are all the libraries it's using. And there's a lot more to see here. You can just explore it for yourself. And let me also show you a small demo of how you can build something like this. I'm going to open Cursor and I will initiate a next app. I will say npx create next app at latest. And this is going to initiate a fresh next app for me. And I'm going to add React Flow and show you. So you can build a smaller version of N8N and explore things. I'm just going to use the default settings to create it. Now the Next.js project has been initiated and I can just run it using npm run dev. And I can access my web app at this URL, which is localhost 3000. So now what I'm going to do now is just open the agent, and I generally don't give it the permission to write, but this is a simple application what I'm going to build. So I'll just give it the permissions. What I will say is, I will select this and I will say, turn the home page force on it, and I'm just going to go ahead. So I'll be back when it's done with a few things. And now you can also see that it's starting to take the steps, which would be the exact step I would take, installing React Flow and doing all those things. So it's just going to go ahead and install and do everything. I'll be back in a few minutes. So here we are, 2 prompts later. So it did make me the sidebar and the nodes and all these things, but it wasn't good enough. So there was a canvas, but there were no commands on how you can resize the canvas and all those things. So I just gave it another instruction on how I'm not able to drag and drop and all those things. And it just redid it. And it took about 4 minutes. And you can see the results. So this is just what it made for us. Now we have these triggers, and you can also see these moving lines. And you can see the active nodes, the status is active, all the settings in execute, and the save buttons haven't been configured. This is just a visual example. And now you can also see how the canvas is. So this is the canvas, which is built using React Flow, which is the same one N8N uses. And you have these zoom in, zoom out, and now you can also log the workflow, and you get the entire idea. You can add commands, and you can connect it. I'm not sure how you can connect them. I think they should be able to connect from one of these buttons or something. But I can just prompt it and be like, I'm not able to connect them. Or even if I can connect them using these little buttons, I don't see how I can start the connection line. And that's how it's going to fix it. And you get the idea. This is what essentially N8N is. In the back end, all the logic for these nodes is handled. And at the front end, you can just connect logic and all these things, and on it goes. And from this, you get the entire idea what's actually going on. And now we have talked about what's actually happening under the hood. This is what N8N is essentially. Now let's look at N8N and learn a few basic things, the basic interface of N8N. The first thing we'll talk about is the node-based workflows and how the data moves. These are the most important things. So I'm going to go here and make a new workflow. I'm just going to save this. So the first thing we'll see is the interface itself. You have this main N8N dashboard, which has your plus sign, which is going to create a new workflow or a credentials or a project, depending if you're on the enterprise subscription or not. You have this personal section, which shows you the workflows inside the folders. So in the overview, you do not actually see the folders, but in the personal, you can organize your N8N workflows inside of these folders, and you can create your folder from this. You can just say folder demo, and it's going to make a folder for me. And now inside of this, I can create a workflow, and you can also drag and drop workflows inside of it. I'm just going to go and add it here, and now you can see it is inside of this. I can also add different filter tags. The next thing is the credentials. So credentials are the API keys or some other kind of credential like header auth and anything else you're using. So all of those can be found here, and you can just delete them or open them and see them. For example, here you can see, and you can manipulate your credentials. And you can also see all the executions that are run on this account. You can see the workflow name, status, started date, runtime, and execution ID. So each execution has a separate execution ID. Now, depending on the workflow executions, you can either delete the successful ones, or you can retry with currently saved workflow with the same data and retry with original workflow like started from the beginning, or you can delete it. And some other things in the new N8N version. For the previous one, these things weren't there in the previous one. For example, you can see all your production executions, failed production executions. You can see the failure rate and the runtime average for your workflows. Although I do not know how the time sales will be calculated. They have some internal mechanism, and it is clearly paywalled, so you cannot have this option in the free one. The next thing you need to know is the settings tab. You have these settings in which you can see your usage or plan, and you can see your personal settings of what's going on, which account you're using, which email address. You can also see the users inside this account. For example, in the same account, I can invite more users. And by default in N8N, only the first person that signs up is the owner. And from there on, you can also see the sign up option. For example, if I copy this link and open a new private window where N8N is not logged in, you will see that I'm not able to make a new account because this is just one time only. And you get the ability to create additional admin users if you upgrade to their plan. And you can use this invite button to invite people. I think you can invite members for free, but not the admin. So for admin, you need the pro plan. You have this N8N API, which is the API for N8N itself. So if some other software wants to talk to N8N, you can use this API. And there are some external secrets, which is available in the enterprise plan. This is going to be something similar to API keys. And all these other options like environment, SSO, LDAP, and these will be enterprise only. So there's one more thing called community nodes. So community nodes are nodes, like the N8N nodes themselves created by community members, and you can use them. And as we go through the videos, you will also learn later how you can make your custom community nodes as well, but that will be for the future. So the final thing that you need to know about this entire thing is this templates. So there are many templates, even though many of them are not useful. And you have these templates where the N8N community shares those templates, and you can search for anything you like here. There are about 3,200 templates now. The last time I checked, there were like 2,000. And I think this is way better than any GitHub repository because most of the GitHub repositories which you see were created by these templates and just recycling them. And these templates are more clear and with better instructions. On GitHub, most of them are just sometimes even same templates disguised under a different name. So this is the best resource if you just want some templates and you just want to test it. So now let's go ahead and create our workflow. So this is how a new canvas looks for N8N, which is pretty similar, at least in functionality, to our canvas. You get the idea, and now you know how N8N works underneath. So the first thing you need to know is that you can name it anything from here. I'll just say N8N first demo. So you can change the names of your workflow from here, and you can also add tags. So suppose you can add a tag and you can just say that this workflow is for Instagram, and then you can create and manage tags as well. So I'm just going to create the Instagram tag, and I can manage tags from here. So I can tag my workflows. For example, if this workflow is going to be something related to Instagram, so I can tag it Instagram. And you can also have multiple tags. So this is not just a one tag thing. So you can have as many tags as you want, depending on what it relates to. The next thing you need to know is that you can zoom in and zoom out of the workflows, and you can also fit to screen. The other thing is the logs here. So if you run the workflow, there are going to be logs here. So suppose I add a trigger node and I execute it, you see that I can see the logs. So the logs contain all the detailed information that's happening. I can clear the execution and it's just going to erase the data. For example, now you can see that if I run it, you see that it has run and there's one item, but if I clear it, then the data goes away. And you can also run it from this button, the execute workflow button, and you can save your workflows from the save button. And you can see the entire version history for your workflow from here. Just in case you mess something up, you can see everything that happened. Firstly, I created it, then I changed something, and you can also see the entire workflow here with all its information preserved. So if you just want to go back and check it. So if you see the last saved one, for the 3 other changes, I did not save it. So even though it has the information, but it didn't save it. So if you go here, you can see that this was how the workflow looked. And from this actions, you can open the version in a new tab, for example, this version. So if you have like 5 versions, it was working in the 4th one, but then you made some changes, then it stopped working. So you can just come here in actions and then open that version in a new tab. So this is what the version history is useful for. The other thing is when you're sharing your N8N workflows, so either you can just download it, because at the end of the day, N8N workflow is just a JSON file. So suppose I copy this. I'm going to copy this workflow, and now you can see copy to clipboard, and I'm going to go into cursor and open a new tab and paste it here. So now you can see what's actually happening inside N8N. This is just a workflow. You might have also seen it in Comfy UI and all the React Flow-based tools. You have this node, you have the parameter, and you have this node type. It says manual trigger. You have this name. If you change the name in the node, it's going to change as well. You have the instance ID, and same for everything. I actually pasted the same thing twice, so I'm just going to remove it. And this is how the workflow looks. So at the end of the day, this is just a JSON file. And if you're not familiar with JSON files, we're going to learn about JSON files as we go ahead. Now, the other thing that you need to know is that you have 3 tabs here. The first is editor, then there is executions, and then you have evaluations. So editor is where you make all your edits and you build your workflows. In the executions, you can see all your previous executions, and even if they failed, you can debug it from here. And for the evaluations, I'm going to cover this up later in the videos on how you can do this. Now, going back to the editor, you can see this one thing. So each one item on N8N is called a node. So this is one node. You can add more nodes, and that's going to be another node. For example, I'll just say this. So this is one more node. So on top, on the canvas, you see that you have these nodes, but underneath, they are just API requests. So the code underneath N8N looks something like this. You have this canvas, and you have this trigger to some code, which starts something. And you have this other node, which is API request to related to Action Network. I'm not sure what Action Network is, but whatever it is, they have this code here, right? So if you start it, when you click this, what it actually does is the code starts running in the background, and then it starts it, and it then just runs this API request, and it does whatever action you tell it to do. And the data flows from one thing to the other. For example, the output of this function goes into the input of this function. So the data flows. If you look at the next point, which I have here, is how the data moves. And there are two main things to focus here. So I'm going to remove this node. I have a trigger node and this edit fields node. What I'll do is I'll just say text and then I will say 1. So if I run this, you see that every time this is being run, only one item is being passed through, which means there's only one item in the pipeline. So suppose I do this. I will say, I'll write my name and then execute it. And now what I'll do is add a code node. And what I'll do with a code node, and I will separate all the characters from this text into separate entities. So I'll just define this and I will add it here. And you don't have to worry about it if you don't know JS right now. We'll talk about it later. So I wrote this little command. What it does is it takes the input, then it splits the text and returns each character. So if you look now in the output, what's actually going on, I have these things. So I have all the characters split out, and now you can see I have 11 items. So if I do anything now, that means if I run any kind of data manipulation or some HTTP request, what's going to happen is it is going to run 11 times because there are 11 elements. So that's sometimes what happens when people try to run things, right? So they have multiple elements. They want to just run it once or just for some specific case, but they do not look at the number of items they have. So there are 11 items. If you take the character and add it into, for example, I'll just add it into URL, but this is going to go in body. But you get the idea. So now it's going to run 11 times. There are 11 items, so it's going to run 11 times. So that is how the data flows. You have this, you can think of it like this. You have this pipeline in N8N. This is your entire workflow. You start here, you have one thing, and then it goes to the next node, then to the next, then to the next. But if at some point there are many elements, like I just have here, like 11 elements, what that means is now everything will run 11 times. And so on, unless you explicitly state here in settings that execute once. But then you'll also have to select what you want to enter, and it's going to throw you that it is not able to determine what you want to use, which is going to be a bit advanced. We're going to cover that later. But you get the idea that you have all these items, and this is how the data flows. So now we have looked at how the node-based workflows work, how data moves, the canvas area, the workflow settings, and you have also seen the executions. And that is all for the first video of basics of N8N. And if you want to join the community, you can check out the link in the description. We have almost completed our seed round members. We are already at 63 members. Then the price is going to increase. If you need any help with no-code automation, SaaS, or any kind of marketing and content automation, you can join the community for personalized help.